Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 295, Making the Switch. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Our show today is brought to you by Instant House Call, remote support that is easy for you and your clients to use. You have all the tools you need, including an auto repair feature, which saves you time and money when helping your clients to solve their computer problems. Check out Instant House Call for free. Use offer code Podnutz. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have Don Jagoe from My Tech Geeks. How you doing, Don?
Great. How's everybody doing?
Good. Good to have you. And also Andre McDearmon from Second Chance PC Techs. Andre, how you doing?
Good, Jeff. How's everybody doing?
Awesome. Glad to have you guys on the show today. Today we got an interesting topic, which we will get into here shortly. But let's start off with a tip or trick or just a story that we could learn from. And Don, I'm going to shoot it over to you.
Yeah, I'll just say let's don't buy computers from eBay from unknown sellers. I just had a customer a couple days ago. She bought a MacBook Pro on eBay. Didn't know the seller, but the seller had a good rating, of course, and everything. And she was a new customer to me, but she brought it to another shop and they said they couldn't fix it. And then she called me and said, "Can you take a look at it?" And I said, "Well, it sounds like the hard drive." You know, when they take it apart and it's obvious there's also liquid damage in it. So she still wants to go ahead and put the hard drive in it, but then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you know, then we do Apple tests and one of the modules of RAM are bad, and you know, but the other thing I would say as a business owner, one thing I've been doing for a while is when I get something like that, I always make sure to say and make it very, very clear that I can fix this particular issue. So that, you know, I showed her that, you know, in the testing there that the hard drive is bad. And I said, I can fix this hard drive, but you may also have these other issues down the road, right? Just so that they're not coming back shortly thereafter saying, "Hey, you know, you broke my laptop," which they might still do anyway, right?
Exactly. You touched it.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much you own it, right?
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Andre, go ahead and share a tip or story with us that we can learn from.
All right. So my tip is to basically always remember to stay open, right? You need to have an open mind. So I have a client, they are participating in an E-rate and they're getting new networking equipment. So normally this is a Cisco house, everything is Cisco, but we're slated to get some Ubiquiti equipment. And so I'm new to Ubiquiti. So I got to remind myself to stay open, you know, stay open-minded. Because at first I was resisting, like, no, I need Cisco this, everything, you know. And so I've been doing my research with Ubiquiti and seeing that, you know, they have quality products, cheaper, way cheaper than Cisco, you know. And so it actually fits better for the client, you know, and it's not what I would prefer. It's actually what they need and what they can afford. So I say you just got to stay open and do what's best for the client at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue there, because I think when you look at some of the things that we do for our clients, and there's a, you know, kind of a better, best scenario where you might have a couple different lines of products. Now, again, we're not talking about consumer grade products, because nobody should be putting consumer grade products in any business anywhere. If you're going to do that, put it in residential, but even that's suspect. Okay. Because you can do much more with equipment that doesn't cost that much more and will last longer, and you can monitor it better by using some other business class models. So that's definitely something to look at. All right, so let's see. My tip, let's see. So forgive me if anybody works in corporate IT, but over the last month, I've been dealing with, basically we had a power outage at my plant and the power went out. Come back up, and I go into my shop, and my computer where we order parts, check emails to get parts and different things through vendors and whatnot at work, was not working. Now I could probably hop on another computer in another shop, you know, not a humongous stopping deal, but it's kind of a pain to walk over and get somebody on somebody else's computer that they're using. So we're sitting there, I go in and IT comes down. And there's not a whole lot you can do to the computer. So I go in, yep, it's not running. So he comes in, I come back. I can't remember, I was at a meeting or something. I came back, and basically he had disabled the Ethernet card. And I went in and I tried to enable it, but you can't because you need an administrator password, and I don't have that. So we called them back down, said, hey, come back down here, turn this card on so we can figure out exactly what's going on. Long story short, they never came back for that particular issue. Tried to tell them over and over again. Finally took a person's laptop, plugged it directly into the line, said, yep, we're not pulling anything here. I said, basically, because a lot of us are on the same switch, which is actually up in the ceiling in this plant, we went and looked and seen where it was at. I'm like, yeah, the switch is partially failing. This happens all the time. And so we tried to send several emails out through my boss and several other people to let them know that, listen, the switch is partially failing. That's why you're getting these intermittent problems. You're not seeing it. I get it. If you try to ping anything outside of, now, what was weird was they were able to get on the intranet. So when they were taking Marvin will like this, their Fluke tool, which I think they have the One Touch, but I'm not sure. Maybe they don't have the One Touch. Maybe it's the one below that. But anyways, their tool where they can figure out, if there's a break in the line or whatever. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with the line. It's not that. It's absolutely the switch. And supposedly they even tried switching ports. I said, listen, your switch is partially failing, or something happened to it, or it's misconfigured somehow. But those things have been up there a long time. It's, they fail. They're electronics. Anything electronic will eventually fail. So finally, a month later, IT comes in and says, hey, you guys are calling us a lot. I'm like, well, yeah, we want this stuff fixed, and I don't have access to fix it. So I'm like, dude, it's the switch up in the ceiling. It has nothing. They swapped our computers out. They're like, hey, it still doesn't work. I know, because it's the switch. I'm telling you. And so from their standpoint, they think I know nothing, which I get that. But at the same time, I'm just going, sometimes, and this is hard in corporate IT, you got to get out of your own way. You got to be able to think outside the box and go, you know what? Something's not right. And I don't think swapping the computer out is absolutely going to fix this problem. But I also understand in corporate IT, they also have this thing that they have to go through in order to check the boxes and go, yep, we did this. Yep, we did that. But it's a lot of times the way they do things is so backwards thinking to me. I don't get it. I'm looking at something and going, no, that's not it. Let's move on from there and figure out, what it is we need to do. I mean, it switched. There was like 4 computers in the area down, and he switched all 4 computers. And so anyways, that was a bummer, but that was my quick story for the week anyways. All right. So let's take a quick moment and we'll get into our main topic. TechCon Unplugged, September 20th through the 22nd, 2019. Yes. Less than a year away. All right. It's going to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan, here in my own state. Paco Lebron and I are throwing this on right now. I've talked to people like Mike Smith, and Mike Smith is on board, and he'll be coming and sharing some things with us. So that'll be awesome. A lot of people in the secret Facebook group know about this, and they're also they're pumped up to be ready to go. So right now we've got somebody that's working on the website, not us, because neither one of us, we could do it, but it's kind of a pain. So we're going to have the website done, and we are going to get tickets up for sale so we can put some actual traction to this and get some of the things, some of the contracts and stuff paid off and all that kind of stuff, so we can go on from there. It's going to be a great time. We're excited to be able to put this together. It's going to be a lot of work, but at the same time, I think it's something that this community in itself kind of needs. There's a lot of other groups out there that throw different functions and stuff like that, and that's fine. There's what I would call like a middle tier, maybe a little bit more, more the business oriented side. And then obviously you got enterprise and all that kind of stuff. But I think for what we do, you've got this hybrid mix, which quite honestly, people lie all the time, but most people have hybrid mixes. They just don't want to tell you that. But that's the absolute truth. So anyways, we're excited to put this together. If you want more information about it, go to techconunplugged.com and sign up. So as soon as we get ticket sales up and running, we can zip you off an email, and we'll go from there. And then we've got a great hotel. Everything's going to be in one spot. And we got the room rates down to $102 a night. You can't beat it. And it's close to the airport. And we're pretty sure we've got free shuttle support. Or you get off the plane, grab your bags, get on a shuttle, go to the hotel, done. And then that's where we're going to be for the whole weekend. So we hope that you can come out and join us. Again, if you're interested in information, go to techconunplugged.com. All right, let's talk about our main topic for today, making the switch to a full-time IT business owner. How in the world do you do that? And Andre actually brought this to us because he's going through a transition. So I'm going to let him start off and kind of tell us his story and where he's coming from. And then we'll dive into some of the maybe do's and don'ts of what you need to do to either prepare yourself in case this does happen, or even if you're not prepared, what are some of the things you can do to make it a little bit easier on yourself? So Andre, you are up.
Okay. Awesome. So I formed my business in 2013. At the time, no, I was a consultant working, for a few clients. But one thing they don't tell you when you work as a consultant, like when you don't work, you don't get paid, And so that led to burnout. Let's just say that very quickly. So long story short, I ended up taking a position with one of my clients as their IT person, their IT guy. And I was working there for the last 5 years up until the end of July this year, and when I got laid off. And so that has started this transition for me from, working part-time to now full-time into my business. And so, I asked Jeff and everyone and Don, have you guys also had a similar situation where you were forced to become a full-time IT business owner, or did you make the jump willingly and start your own business, without being laid off or anything like that?
And I think that's a good place to start there. And I'm going to go ahead and refer over to Don real quick. Now, Don, we were talking before the show, and where did you you have a similar situation, except that I think you didn't have your business or something going. So why don't you tell us your story of transitioning into a full-time computer repair business?
Yeah, I used to manage through a third party. I would manage a pretty large call center used to be for Microsoft at first. And then I got recruited to manage a call center for Hewlett Packard. And I did the Hewlett Packard one for about 5 years. And then eventually I got shipped off to India for about a month to ramp up a couple of call centers there, and shipped off to Costa Rica, same story. And then I got offered a job in either place. But, my wife, I think was she pregnant at the time? And I have small children and she works. So my wife said to me, why don't you just start some small business or something? Because I was never home. I was always either at work or flying somewhere for, several days at a time. So this worked out really well. Like it was a little tough the first year. But after that, the money was there after, I'd say, the first year, and certainly have a lot more time to spend with family and stuff like that. Right. So even though you're working a lot, you get to see your kids a lot more than I used to be able to see them. So it worked out really well.
That's a good point too, because a lot of people don't realize, even when they're spending time at a job, that they, depending on the shift you're on or wherever you're working, there's a lot of times that you miss with your kids growing up, and that can definitely be hard.
Absolutely.
So Andre, now you're transitioning, you got laid off, but you had already started your business. So is there anything in the beginning that you did to prepare in case you got laid off? Did you see the writing on the wall or anything like that? Or did this just kind of blindside you? And now all of a sudden you're going, okay, now what do I do? Or maybe what are some of the feelings you were going through too?
I would say, because prior to when I started my business, I got laid off before that. So I got laid off prior to when I started the business, and I knew that I could never be in a situation where I didn't have my own business, where I didn't have, a side hustle or something else that I was bringing in income outside of just one source of income from being an employee.
Okay.
And so, history kind of taught me, hey, you never want to be slave to just that one check, and you always have to keep your options open. And so at that time, when I did form the business, in my head, I was thinking, hey, I'm going to do this full time. I'm going to do the consulting thing. I'm just going to be out here. But, and I also had small kids too. I did have to, think about insurance and medical and other things that did kind of make that decision to become an employee, it mattered and it weighed that decision at that time. But as things started progressing, even as an employee, I'm like, okay, I can see kind of the writing on the wall. Maybe I need to start, getting my flyers, getting my business cards, really start, putting my name out here just to, in case something happens, because you never want to be, like I said, out here and you don't have a backup plan. So my backup plan is always my own business. And I think it should be for everybody. But, that's a whole nother conversation, but I think whether it's a side hustle where you're doing this legit, or if you're just getting money fixing computers on the side, I do think you have to start having that discussion or that thought process of, when do I start to make this a legit business? And whatever the process is, do I do a sole proprietorship? And then we can get into that, the LLCs and all that. But that's the one thing I love about IT, is that you don't have to, there's many ways to make money in this industry, right? There's many ways to make money in this business. You can do it under the table. You can do it legit. I would prefer you do it legit, not under the table, because eventually taxman will come to you, but you have that opportunity to pick and make your own decisions and choices.
And that's a good point. I was telling somebody the other day that I have never only had just one job. I have always had a part-time business on the side, just for times like that. Because even in the auto industry, there was years where we would be laid off periodically, on and off. And yeah, you do get a little bit of money, but it's never enough to really make ends meet. And you're kind of like, now what do I do? And again, for a lot of people out there that think about retirement, if you can get a pension from a job, and there's many of our listeners right now that have gotten pensions from their regular job, after 30 years, they said, you know what? Enough's enough. I'm going to go into my full-time business, and I'm still going to make, with my pension and what I'm making in my business, I'm still going to be able to make what it is that I'm making today. And that's good. And I can grow my business over time. So there's kind of plus it gives you something to do. So I think for a lot of people, that's a good scenario to be in. And really, if you're any type of person that likes to hustle a little bit and wants to, hey, what if I went out and started this business to make a little side money during the lean times? And I think that's very important. And I think the more people that think about that, that would benefit them overall. Now, Don, from your standpoint, you basically got laid off. You went into this business full time. Was there any apprehensions you had after getting started?
Yeah, sure. At first, like I'd say the first few months, it wasn't super busy. Like I spent a ton of money with Google AdWords, and it was almost like a light switch. You would start getting calls as soon as you started running your ads. But yeah, like I was making really, really good money. So, and had nice bonuses every quarter and everything else, right? So those things, you can't, they don't come in. Like if you're not working, that money just doesn't come in. So yeah, the big thing I was worried about was, can I support my family? And but it's like we were talking about earlier, if you really, really hustle, you can make at least as much as what you're making before, or probably more, if you're willing to work really hard and work really smart at it.
Absolutely. And I believe that 100%. A lot of people we were talking before the show too, had a email a few weeks back where somebody had said, hey, thanks, for, bringing this information to us. And so that we could, I basically had said something about, hey, you can still make money at break fix, which you absolutely can, even though there'll be people out there that tell you can't. You can. It's just a different type of business. There's different things you have to deal with. Everybody thinks that the business side is sexy, but the reality is it has cons to doing it that way too. So you're going to have pros and cons to everything you do, and that's okay. And you know what? Everybody's wired a little bit differently. Not everybody is wired to deal with that day-to-day business stuff that just maybe bores you to tears. Maybe they like the excitement of, yeah, I'm only getting the one-offs, but you create a couple of, good customers, and you don't need a whole lot. And those customers will keep coming back to you and bringing you revenue. you know, you just treat them right, you take care of them, and you're their IT guy. There was somebody the other day that was trying to pay a bill and they wanted to pay it on the phone, and basically called me and said, "Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you, and I can't get a hold of you, and I'm really concerned. You know, I want to pay this bill," and it was for recurring services. And I'm like, you know, I send those out a month ahead of time, so I never sweat that stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. I was busy, whatever. And she was thinking, she's like, oh, I don't know what I'd do if I'd lost you. So I'm like, really? But there's a lot of people that believe that. They like what it is you do for them. And those same customers can be out there for you too. Oh, joining us, we have Paco Lebron, my other cohort, who's come on here to share a little bit because I think he's going through some of the same types of things. So, Paco, if you want to say hi and let us know basically your quick transition story of where you went from part-time to full-time.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Did you miss
Yeah.
me? Um, Essentially, similar to how Andre was talking about, and back in December of 2016, my W-2 or my previous employer had transitioned their department from basically they were a pharmaceutical software company, and they had 22 offices around the world. And essentially, what ended up happening was the tier 2 support that supported the 18 by 5 model, 18 hours by 5 days. Basically, what ended up happening was they had an issue where they were not getting the love apparently from the US hours. So what they ended up doing was transitioning everyone from the US down to their 2 offices in Pune, India and New Delhi, India. So what ended up happening was there was 6 months prior to December, so in June, where they eliminated the entire department with the exception of 2 people. I happened to be one of those 2 people, knowing that I already seen the writing on the wall. So I was just waiting for the severance package to come before they kind of forced me out in that aspect of it. Once that ended up happening, then that's kind of what started my transition from part-time into full-time, which I am now for now going on 2 years.
Awesome.
Or close to 2 years.
And I remember you and I sitting down and having that conversation about a year prior to this happening.
Yep.
And that was one of the questions I asked you was I said, hey, you're seeing some transitions and stuff in the company that you're working for. Do you see them at some point maybe getting rid of you and you're going to build up this momentum to be able to make that leap in your own business?
Yep. So that's exactly right. So the moment that I saw the writing on the wall, I started to kind of, I would say abuse the policy of essentially working from home at that time, and then basically started because I already knew it was coming. So I ended up doing just that. I ended up taking advantage of the opportunities of normally our busy time was the first 3 hours of the day, whether it was 9 to 12, 9 to 1, and then I would just leave. I would end up going ahead and working from home. I would go ahead to my office and work from home because I was in another part of where my original office is right now, and just start working, building relationships, building the momentum of getting clients and just potential relationships to be able to further along to help my business automate and be a little bit more sufficient.
All right, very good. All right, Andre, coming back to you now, was there any apprehensions for you as far as going into your business full time because you just gotten laid off? And I don't know, and everybody can answer this question eventually, but was there multiple sources of income coming into the household anyway to kind of buffer that, or is it basically all on you?
Oh no, it's all on me. I am the breadwinner, and so taking that hit from losing my job, it's just a mental, just kind of going through the emotional aspect of it because I was there for 5 years. Like it wasn't just me that got laid off; it was a whole team of people, and so. But this also has been happening throughout the years, and so what a lot of people don't talk about is when you are, when you work in the corporate America and you're working with other people, you create and you build bonds and you start, you knowing about people's family and the kids and uncles and dads. And so to see them leave, not because they want to, but because company, terminated them, it does something to you. And so as all that is happening, and then for me to be a part of, you know, a layoff, it's like kind of like to what Paco was saying, I kind of was abusing the system. You know, I was working more from home. I was kind of seeing what was happening and taking advantage because, hey, we're IT. It's like, I don't need to be there. Why I got to drive 30, 45 minutes downtown, deal with traffic, when I can use my computer and do things remotely. So I started to do that more. And then they called me as I was working from home, like, hey, you know, we got to lay you off. And it's like, oh, you know, okay. So it was more of, all right, what's next? What's next, Trey? You know, this is kind of what you say you wanted to do. You've been saying you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. Now, let's see, can you make it happen? You know, so now when your back's against the wall, what are you going to do? And so I think you got to be a special kind of crazy, one, to be an entrepreneur, because you get hit with all types of stuff and don't have a family, children. Like we get hit up with so many things on a daily. It's just a mental thing of dealing with issues, and especially in IT, because you got to think we deal with tickets, issues all the time. So we're a special kind of crazy to be IT business owners and entrepreneurs in this industry. But I say that to say that it's other like-minded individuals. That's why I love doing these podcasts and talking to other IT owners, business owners, because we all are going through different situations, but it's kind of the same. And kind of just networking and talk with other guys. And you can say, yeah, I was there when, man, it was hell of a time. You know, the first year is going to be rough, but you get through it. And so just having that network group of other like-minded people to support you is huge.
Very good. All right, Don, if that very first year that you were in your business full time, what are some of the things that you went through as far as transitioning that full-time business and making it better over time? Because I would imagine, I think we talked before the show, that probably about a year is the time span where you can really get some stuff solidified in your business if you're going at it. Now, if you're not, you know, that's a whole nother story. But from your standpoint, what types of things did you do, and what types of things came up that you had to deal with as you were building your business?
Yeah, like I'd say the first thing was like advertising. I had to spend my money wisely doing advertising. So I did a lot of Google AdWords. I made my own ticketing system to try to become more efficient, right? I guess I got the instant house call, remote assist type of software, especially for those residential customers where they had a quick question for you, but they might be all the way on the other side of town. They think it's nothing. So that saved a lot of time getting that type of software. I did get insurance pretty early on as well, because I owned my own home and all that kind of stuff. And even though I wasn't doing a lot of business initially in the first year, I thought it was important to get business insurance. So I've had business insurance for quite a while now. I also got commercial car insurance. I think it was only like $100 and some more a year. But I talked to some other people in the business here, and they were saying, you know, if you back into something or whatever while you're at work, you know, most likely your car insurance company is going to find out about it. They're not going to cover it, that kind of stuff, right? Another thing was like how you're going to accept payment. So right from the beginning, I in Canada here, I signed up for Moneris Payment, which is our like a joint venture between RBC and Royal Bank. So I had the pay terminal, so I could take debit or credit, that kind of thing. Later on, I also use Square now as well, but it's mostly the credit terminal. And really asking for referrals early on. If someone told me they were really happy, or if you could tell somebody was really happy with your work and you went above and beyond and, you know, the extra mile on the job, sometimes I would ask, I say, hey, or I'd leave 2 extra business cards with them. And I say, hey, if you have anyone you can refer me to, I really appreciate it, that kind of thing. Right. So, you know, instead of maybe if someone offered you a tip or something, say, hey, what would be most important to me if you refer me to another customer or something, that kind of thing. But yeah, the first year, it was mostly just getting started. I delivered some flyers. My first job came, like I went to Vistaprint and ordered up those little postcards, and I delivered them to maybe a couple hundred homes or whatever. And one of my first clients that I still have today, it was because of the drop off in his mailbox. And believe it or not, like we might have talked about this one time before, but those little postcards, I still have a ton of them. I never delivered them all because I started getting busy. But believe it or not, I used to get customers sometimes a year or maybe 2 years later that they had saved those postcards and put them in their drawer until they had a computer problem. And then when I come, either they mention it or you might see it sitting on their desk. And like I figured they'd be in the garbage, long before, But obviously you're going to need a decent vehicle. You're going to need a reliable phone. You're going to probably have to invest a little bit of money in some tools. Just all the basics, right?
All right.
Yeah.
In Paco, so when you first started that first year in business and started moving things along, now obviously we've talked about basically buying tools and having the tools available to be able to do your business better, streamline, because eventually you get to the point where you're busy and you need to set that stuff up. Now, did you have a hard time spending money on tools in your business?
No, because I started listening to Podnutz in 2014. So, no, and it's true because I think once I started listening to Podnutz Daily, and then because that's really for me Podnutz Daily, this was September of 2004. No, I'm sorry, April of 2014. That's really where the difference between Podnutz Daily versus I think CRP at the time was Podnutz Daily was where the rubber meets the road. It was basically every technician talking about what they were doing, what it was that they were trying to do. And by you standardizing your questions for each guest, it allowed me to pick out, okay, cool, this guy said this. And oh, this guy said this. Like a perfect tip. There was one guest where I still cannot find that episode where they said the Armor All wipes are the best wipes that you can purchase versus the computer wipes. And it's not the ones where you can revitalize the leather. It's just a regular level 1 that's the best wipes to get. And it's true. I purchased Armor All wipes ever since then, and that's what I clean all the PCs with. Another one being the Data Vac, when gentleman that's in my neck of the woods in Park Ridge, I can't think of his name right now, from FireLogic is the name of the IT company, where the Data Vac was basically a small miniature compressed air that you connect via plug it in and boom, it's like a leaf blower, but miniature size, and you can carry it around wherever. So it cut down on the purchasing of compressed air for me. And I just carried that around for $60 going from there. So a lot of the listening to Podnutz, and then, my co-host with Matt Rodella over at the Computer Business Podcast, listening to his show, Mike Smith, and then everyone else. And then Lisa, wow, I forgot Lisa's last name, but thank you, Lisa over for Office 365. Lisa was really the person that helped guide me into not only Podnutz but doing remote support, because I basically, what started my whole journey was way before I even transitioned to being full-time. What ended up happening was I was working for a national residential computer repair company, and they would do on-site services. And I just got tired of kind of what they were doing. So I was looking for forms. And when I typed in computer repair forms, it led me to TechNibble. And then once I got to TechNibble led me to Lisa because it was on an ad. Lisa then, when she had her show on Podnutz, led me to Podnutz. So throughout that transition, there was a lot of things that I could say, like my forms from TechNibble, my remote support on how to do remote support. A lot of these things all came from just my curiosity and research from before. And then during that first year, having that money now available, I was able to do little things here and there to streamline, kind of like what you said. But, which I'll talk about a little bit more when I bring back Tech Life in November 1st for the last 8 episodes, is that first year, technically, in my opinion, what didn't feel like my first year, because I had the severance money kind of still guiding me as if I was still working my W-2. So I wasn't pushing myself as hard until the money stopped, which was really 6 months later. That's really when it was time. It was go time. It was really time to go from there. But I can say that during those 6 months, it allowed me to address a lot of the debts and things like that that I needed to address ahead of time so that I wouldn't be affected so hard, as Andre said, being a single father, being, having all these responsibilities that you have, that you're on your own, and just all these other things that you end up finding out or get into later on as you're going through this entrepreneurial journey. It all kind of comes crashing down. And those 6 months allowed to really get a good cushion so that I can not only save, but also assess what needs to happen moving forward for the next year and a half when things really started happening.
Okay. Now, Andre, from, getting let go from your job and moving into this full time, doing what it is you do, is there anything mentally that you had to do in order to get things right in your head, to make sure that, hey, okay, we're not gonna let this depress me. We're not gonna let this take me down. We're going to stand up and do what it is we need to do. Is there anything that, any books you read or anything that you just basically used in order to keep your frame of mind right?
Oh man, how long is this podcast? No, I could tell you definitely. I started. I don't know if you're big into meditation and praying, but when you lose a job a couple times and like us, you're single dad, or if you breadwinner, stress, just the stress could crush you. So I started just meditating, praying, taking walks, taking my dog out for walks, kind of just really slowing down. I think another thing too that we don't talk about with IT overall is just you gotta constantly, you're on the go all the time, So I think you have to have a certain type of mental strength to you to be in this industry, because we get hit up a lot, and just daily. First thing I wake up is like, did I get any tickets? And you have that kind of just not so much a fear. It's just like, oh man, what do I got to deal with today? So the mental side of this, I don't even think, I used to play football when I was in high school. So, it's kind of, I use that analogy of football. It's like, you got to be prepared to get hit. And when you get hit, it's always how you take that hit, and then you got to get up and get hit again. And so being prepared to know that you're going to get hit and taking the hits, but you got to, then it's technique. Hey, how do we do this properly? Like kind of like what Paco said and Don. And they just, look, I was writing this stuff down and I'm still learning. And that's what I love about, this community, the Podnutz. Like, you guys are like superstars to me. I listen to podcasts, and Paco and Matthew, I would listen to them, and just, I got so much knowledge just from the podcast. It felt like you guys, like I knew you guys. And so to be on the podcast now, it's like, okay, I'm trying to get back. I want to help other people, but we got to use the resources and the tools that are out there. And then, these podcasts are definitely it. So yeah, mentally, man, reading, I would say a good book to read is, I can't think of it right now. It's, what is it called? It's basically where you got to work on your business, but not in it. Can't think of it. What's the name of it?
Talk about E-Myth.
E-Myth. Yes. I've read that like at least 2-3 times. And I'm not a good, like, actual reading a book. I use Audible. So that's something that I get a free credit every month. And every month I'm buying a new business book. I have too many business books. I need to kind of, spread it out. There's other parts of my life that I'm still working on, but I focused on business, especially with ebooks. So ebooks, E-Myth, that's a good one. Also check out Score. For anybody that's just starting up their business, Score is a great resource. It's a bunch of offices throughout the whole country. They have many different webinars and seminars where you can go in for a discounted price, and they'll actually help you, start your business up, even get funding if you need it. So I think those are the resources I wrote down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And I will second that about the reading. Reading is very, very important. You can read. And here's the thing. Yeah. I believe in prayer. Whatever you want to do to take that time aside and be able to separate yourself from the world for a few moments or a few minutes or whatever, it's good. From the book standpoint, I am trying to, because I like podcasts and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I try to also grab like a business book a month. And the last one I just finished was Clockwork. Excellent book by Mike Michalowicz. In a lot of these books, you can take the here's something, this may or may not throw you off. I don't care because it's my show. But you can go and read the Bible. And the Bible is going to have a lot of the same business tips that you're going to read in books. And I've known this for years. It's been like that since the beginning of time. It's just the way it is. There are no new ideas under the sun. There's just a different way of looking at it or a different way of coming at it. And somebody will take something in their personal life and use it. And that's why a lot of people will try to paint this picture of the IT business. And there are certain individuals out there who will say that you have to do it this way. And to that, I say, no, you don't. And in this instance, I don't say this often, but I'm right, you're wrong. And so the reality is you need to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are and use those to your advantage. And a lot of that knowledge you'll get from a book. Now, will you get a whole, a whole life-changing experience out of the book, whether it's a Bible or Clockwork, or I think one of the other books I just ordered a couple days ago was Entree Leadership from Dave Ramsey. I didn't know he had a business book out there, but the reviews I read on it look phenomenal. So again, I'm an Audible listener. I don't have time to sit there. Well, I don't make time to sit there and read a book, but to listen to it in my car, on the way to school, on the way to work, I try to filter that in with my podcast. So I'm getting a well-rounded view. And am I getting like all these new things out of that whole book? No, but I'm getting a little tidbit here or there. And that's going to help move you forward, not only in your business, but in life in general. So take that for what you may. Don, now you were looking at, obviously you got, past that first year and everything, and you were trying to figure out, was there ever a point, I guess, that you said, man, I made the right decision, I'm doing the right thing? Or was there ever any doubts along the way in your business about, man, should I go back and get another job?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I did have a few sort of offers, like people contacted me, even though I wasn't looking. They're contacting me, asking me to come in for an interview because, I guess they find you on LinkedIn or whatever. Right. And sometimes if they look like they were sort of decent jobs, then I'm thinking to myself, should I, and I'm going over it in my head and I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm going to keep going full strength in the business, because anybody that started a business probably realizes pretty quick how hard it is to start it up, but once it's up and running, it's quite rewarding. Like right now, I think I would have a hard time going back to like the corporate type of life. I suppose if it was crazy money, you might consider it, but it would have to be pretty crazy, right? No, I enjoy working for myself, and I look back and think, why didn't I do it earlier? Honestly, why didn't I start working for myself earlier? Especially since my parents were kind of entrepreneurs, but they wanted me to go to university, and I got a couple of university degrees, and I probably just wasted about 8 years going to university, and yeah, but now that I've started my own business, I encourage my own children to have their own business, and I don't think there's anything better than owning your own business.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do the same thing. And I'll be honest with you, working in the auto industry, I used to work when I worked on the line. I can't tell you, there's more than I can count. There's a lot of people with master's degrees that work right next to me on the line. I mean, they were still paying those debts off.
Yeah.
It's
painful.
It's tough.
Yeah.
You think it's going to be the end all answer, and it's not always. So Paco, after that first year and you're kind of getting settled in, when do you think that you came to the point where things started to click and maybe the momentum was there, as long as you kept a little bit of pressure behind it? How long do you think it took to feel comfortable in your business? Or maybe, are you comfortable yet? That's a good question too.
As far as mindset or financially, because there's a little from column A, a little from column B.
Yeah, a little bit all inclusive of are we ever making the amount of money we want to make? Absolutely not. Are we making enough to live by, to do what we need to do so that we can still continue to grow without it being that much of a hardship?
Right.
I don't know.
So I think probably I would have to probably say the start of year 2. And the reason why year 2 probably makes more sense was because, again, those 6 months, there was a lot that happened. And there was a lot of mentality of shifting from being a 9 to 5 employee to being a full-time entrepreneur. Now, I used to do the full hours and staying after and things like that. But what was great, what clicked was the fact that, okay, I was making X amount of money part-time. I can now shift that efforts during the full-time hours and see how much more I can make. So that was the shift that happened probably in like January, I think was probably the around when it switched. And what really switched wasn't because of, the amount of doors I was knocking, it kept going, kept going. It was actually I had got a Carl Palachuk's book for Christmas. How to get your MSP, or how to get managed services, how to start managed services in 30 days or something like
Yeah,
that.
managed services in a month, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I got that book for Christmas. I read it, and it basically laid out saying, all right, this is what you can do to get a contract. And what I did was, as I read it and all of the things that were listing, it actually listed things that I abandoned several years before because it wasn't worth it to me part-time, which was the retainer program, retainer blocks, and things like that. So what I did was I actually skewed it and made it my own, where now I made my pricing a priority, so that in January, these are my set prices and I'm not moving away from what I've decided these are going to be. The other piece of it too was I actually, and I can't remember where I heard this from or who I talked to, but instead of looking for new customers, it was always said that Victor Antonio, my friend Victor Antonio, he said that it's always easier to upsell than it is going to be making a new sale. So what I did was I revisited my my previous customers who I did one-time offs, or we had a really great relationship, and told them about my new programs. And sure enough, I closed like 3 retainer programs that month. I got a couple that were maintained, that were monthly recurring revenue, whether they were residential. And then another thing that I made the switch to was from my annual plans, because the issue wasn't that I wasn't making any money. The issue was cash flow. I always felt, and my excuse every time was time. I didn't have enough time, or time wasn't with me because everything kept hitting me, and I just didn't have the time to gather the funds or get what I needed to go from there. The moment I switched my annual plans to monthly and improved the cash flow, and then started applying a couple other things, in that month of January started giving me the momentum to then start moving forward on creating more relationships, expanding on some of the organizations that I was a part of, which led me to partner with a bigger MSP who is now throwing me leads that are less than what they even want to look at. And then that's what started kind of revving up and making the momentum of getting this going and actually having a flow versus a clock reset every month.
Very good. Okay. Now, Andre, when you were looking at, obviously, did your business change at all from going from the part-time to full-time as far as customer acquisition, getting new clients? What types of techniques were you using before? And then are you changing anything, or are you still staying with the same right now?
Well, I mean, when I was part-time in it, I was kind of like spray and pray, whoever, whatever, I didn't care. I just needed the money, right? But then as I started to get kind of beaten up and tired and wore down, it's like, all right, I'm not going to look at residential. I'm only going to focus on business. And so, but as anybody knows, doing business, the sales and leads, cold calling, things like that, if you're not in a position to actually go out here and start meeting other business owners, it's going to be kind of hard to get business clients, So I think for me now, where I am, because I have more time, I am actually possibly looking at going back to residential, because kind of like what Don said earlier, when you start working on other people's computers, they can lead you to a business, or they may have a business, but they also have a computer at home. And so that's kind of, it's always about who you know. And so I am re-looking at, my marketing and sales strategy to kind of just, because one, I do appreciate having more time and spending with the family. So, and setting my own schedule. And I'm definitely going to continue to try to get more business clients, but that's not just going to be my only, income stream. I am looking at more residential too.
And I think the reality is the lifeblood of most businesses started off at the residential level, and usually they will transition. Like I said in the beginning, I think everybody is a hybrid. People that tell you they're not, they're lying. But I think for the most part is that the reality is you have so many hours in a day. And that's another question I want to ask you too, is when you are looking at working your business now from, instead of doing it in the evenings and weekends, what are you keeping hours, or are you just kind of on all the time?
Oh, you're on all the time. You are on, baby. But I'm thinking of being, and that's why I say E-Myth, because when you think of being and working on the business, it's not, okay, how many computers can I fix? It's what systems, kind of like what Paco was saying, what systems have I put in place where I can fix X amount of computers in this amount of time? And just that little mind shift, you're not just a break fix or whatever type of person. You're thinking, okay, what strategically do I need to do to make X amount of dollars? That's working on your business. When you're just like, hey, I fix anything, you're in the business, and so I think just that different shift in the questions you ask yourself, how can I, what, even if it's Google AdWords, which I have done nothing of, if I'm researching Google AdWords, that's me working on the business to get more money. That needs to happen than me, fixing a computer. Yeah, I'm going to make money at the end of the day from fixing that computer, but I need to fix X amount of computers to hit a certain target, and start thinking about goals and, hey, Christmas coming up, kids coming in, they don't want gifts. So I need to have a certain amount of money coming in. That's a different mindset of, I'm just going to go out here and fix computers. So
I think from that aspect too, I think you need to protect yourself and protect your time too, because here's what happens to a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs. They talk about the struggle and the how hard it is, and it is, because to me, different businesses I've had in the past, it's more of a mental struggle than anything else. A lot of times when you're doing something you love to do, it's hard to charge somebody what is considered a fair rate. So a lot of times you'll look at maybe what others have done in the past, and you try to mimic that instead of going, you know what, I'm selling a premium service, and so I'm going to charge accordingly. But one of the things that you have to really protect is there's only so many hours in a day, and should you be working 20 of them? Probably not, because what will end up happening, guaranteed, is you will burn out. It's not even a maybe it will happen. It's a guarantee. At some point, you will burn out and you'll go do something else or whatever. I've seen it happen so many times, especially after doing this podcast for well over 4 years now. There's a lot of people where they fall into that, where it's like they were just on. They never protected themselves. And here's what a lot of people don't understand: if you charge accordingly and you charge a good, decent rate for your area, you will have less customers, but more money. I didn't say the same, because I can't explain it. I don't know why it works this way. It just does. And here's the thing: a lot of people need to be in this for the long game. We talk about the different advertising and stuff like that, and we'll get into that in a minute. But you look at something like Google AdWords. Man, people will turn that on for a month and go, "Oh man, I didn't get no customers." Well, it's because I'll take the iPhone example. You're holding it wrong. I don't. What are you talking about? Of course you're not. You may, and I did, and I know several other hundreds of people who have, by turning on their Google AdWords. But is it going to be this spigot? No, it's going to be a drip. It's going to be a slow drip, but eventually you'll get to the point where it is this spigot that's turned on. It's water faucet for those that don't know. I don't even know why I use the word spigot. I don't talk like that, but whatever. So you're going to turn this water faucet on and it's just going to start coming out. Starts with a drip and then opens up and the floodgates open up. So Don, from your standpoint, you said after the first year, you kind of started feeling comfortable in your business and you use things like Google AdWords in the beginning. What did you do to continue to keep your business flowing so that it was this? Because you take me as one of these types of people that you don't basically work, 20 plus hours a day.
I used to like the first year, well, more than the first year, I made my hours 9 a.m. so I could get my kids to school and stuff like that. So 9 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. at night. Now, a lot of the time I didn't work after 7 or I didn't have new jobs coming in after 7. But anybody that's doing either business or residential, you're going to probably have computers either at your business or at your home business, your home location that you're going to have ready for first thing in the morning. So basically I worked 7 days a week for, at least a few years. And, but I soon found out, in the early days, I took jobs I shouldn't have taken, like as far as like I wasn't making enough for what I was providing. But I really wanted to provide for my family and stuff. And I was trying to get as much work as I could, but I did learn over about a year to 2 years that, just like you were saying, Jeff, you're much, much better off charging a rate, whatever that rate is, like a good rate, not like a low rate. And basically you're going to get rid of some of those low end customers that are price conscious, that are always trying to get their foot in the door technique, where you get the computer in and then they're saying, oh, by the way, I need this done, I need this done, I need this done, and they don't want to pay for any of it, right? And then they introduce you to all of their friends that are also expecting all of that work for virtually nothing, right? But yeah, shortly after opening, I'd say within a few years, I reduced my hours, where instead of working 7 days a week, I no longer work on Sundays. And instead of working until 9 at night, I close at 7. But I also, now I have the luxury to pick and choose work. And, I'd say there's at least a couple of calls come in every day where I just say, I don't think it's a good fit or something like that. And I'll refer them to somebody else I know that I think would do that type of work. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else? But the big thing is, initially you're probably going to have to take some jobs that you really don't want to take, just to get the work and pay the bills. But as you get busier and busier and you get more better clients in, you'll be able to get around it. But you will burn out. There's no guarantee. You guaranteed you will burn out if you work 24/7 right around the clock. So don't do it.
And that's a good point. And I think there's a lot of people out there that they wish that they could, for whatever reason, they want to raise their rates. They don't really know, what they should charge, and they're concerned about getting that work. They want to do what's right, and they want to help people, but they want to pay their bills. So in there's seasons, right? There's seasons for you doing what it is you're doing. And a lot of times, like you said, Don, when you're starting off in your business, yes, for the first little bit, whatever that is, could be 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it might be. And you'll learn over time what customers not to take, what customers to take on, and then you'll learn to charge accordingly. And hopefully you'll be better off for that. I still laugh at sometimes the people that they call and they go, actually, here's a real scenario. Now, I'm a part-time business, so this isn't actually fair, but anybody that knows me, I'm telling you the truth. If I was doing this full-time, I would not do this any different. When a customer calls and leaves a voicemail and I don't answer the phone, I just don't. It's my choice. I don't believe I need to be, if somebody's leaving a voicemail or whatever. And a lot of times people will leave that voicemail. And if they ask me how much something's going to cost, I don't even bother calling them back. Now, back when I was first starting, even part-time, man, same thing. I wanted the business and I was calling everybody back. And I'll do that for $25. Yeah. And later on, you learn how stupid you are and you go, what in the world? What was I think? Well, you know what? You're not stupid. You were ignorant. And then it only becomes stupid when you don't learn. As long as you learn from your mistakes, you can be better off for it. So a lot of times the only phone call I want is from a person going, hey, I got a broken something. Can you fix it? Absolutely. And that person I will call back. But as soon as somebody's price shopping, no, not interested. Because you're not telling me that you want the problem fixed. You're telling me, well, I'm going to shop around and see who's got the better deal. And yeah, okay, that's fine. You can shop around, go get the lowest person. And then when you come back to me 6 months later and go, I just lost my pictures for the last 10 years. I go, yeah, because, again, I've been advertising a long time, but my rates are out there.
No, I think that's good, Jeff. But just because we've all gotten our bumps and hits, in this. We've been doing it for a while, and I do think that is important to say that, yeah, early on you're going to take whatever you can to pay the bills, and you're going to learn what people to work with. You're going to get even signs. Like, you got to trust your gut. Like, I'm even getting better, because when I was first doing this stuff, I'd be like, man, I don't get a good feeling from this. Or, this type of client, something's not right. But before I say, no, you need this. Now it's like, hey, no, I can kind of see where this is going. Let me not take this or hand this off to somebody else. Even on the residential side, it's like, before I used to work at a computer store, we had to get a verbal confirmation. Hey, we're going to wipe your computer. Are you sure there's nothing on here that you want to save? If there is, it's going to cost extra, blah, blah, blah. People be like, no, go ahead. There's nothing on there. Until they come back and say, hey, where's the stuff that was on here? Well, you said we could wipe it, but we learned, hey, you got to get people to sign this, a document stating it's okay to wipe this hard drive. There's nothing I need. So, I mean, it's an ongoing evolution, basically.
Yeah, I mean, even when it comes to prospecting, exactly like you said, you get to a point in your career where you can now understand who you want to work with, who are the right people, who are the ones that you're kind of on the fence with that, yeah, if they paid enough, it'll make my worthwhile. And then they're just those that are just jerks and just, damn well you're not going to do it. And I actually just had that this week, and I actually had to call John to make sure that I wasn't being myself in an overbearing way. And the call was a lead that came in as a prospect. And I usually schedule a phone call, because I've learned that I'm not going on site to a customer, because I'm going to waste my time oftentimes if I don't understand what they need. And I want to know what they need first before going on site, if there's an on site that's needed. So we were attempting to schedule for this one client. And my way is, we have a phone call to kind of understand what's going on. And if you need us to assess your network, meaning we're going to talk about what's going on, and you need to show me what's in your office because you cannot clearly explain to me, and you want a deliverable from me, that is an IT assessment. You are getting an hourly charge. That's it. I'm not going on site and wasting my time and then doing all this work, and then you say, I'll get back to you when I can. Several hours that I've wasted, I got no payment for it, and they can shop to someone else. And it's happened so many times that I said, you know what, I'm not doing it this time. So, and I got it. So I spoke to the assistant. The assistant, I explained to her exactly what I just said. And then the owner gets on the phone, because we were trying to schedule a phone conference, and it kept being scheduled as an on-site, and it was not going to happen. So finally, the owner comes on the phone. He says, hey, I'm understanding you're trying to charge us to come on site. And I said, well, I just don't understand what and this is me fluidly speaking to the audience, not what I actually said onto the phone call. But essentially I said, I'm not understanding what the issue is. I want to schedule a phone call. Sounds like you're busy, so that we can discuss what you're looking at. And he already had mentioned he has a IT firm. He has somebody internal that does a lot of the little bit of the troubleshooting. He has another firm taking care of some other stuff. They're a global firm, something, whatever. It kind of just went over. So I basically said, okay, let's schedule a time so we can discuss what you specifically need from us. And he said, well, I don't understand why you can't come here, because I like to build a rapport with my potential vendors. And I said, it's understandable. This is our process. I need to know what you need from us so I can tell you if we are a good fit or not. And it just continued to keep being a back and forth. And then, well, I'm downtown. Where are you located? Yeah, I'm in the West Loop. Okay, so you're going to charge me and we're both downtown? I don't understand that. So clearly it was not getting through. And I basically had the opportunity to tell him, you know what? I don't think this is a good fit. I appreciate your interest. I will let my partner know that, you know what, I don't believe it's going to be a good fit. Good luck on your endeavors in finding an IT provider that's going to fit what you need. And he said, thank you, have a good day. Boom, cut the call and let them know. And that's being able to know. And I felt good about it, but I had to check myself just a little bit to make sure that I wasn't a little too far off on what I was trying to get with. But now I saved myself an hour or two that I probably wasn't going to get paid for, when a simple phone call could have been done, when I could have been doing a couple other things. Because it's a difference in having a phone call and being in your office to continue working than scheduling your time to travel, stay there. If they're late, you got 2 hours, you probably killed 2.5 hours, depending where you're going. And especially if you're traveling farther, versus maintaining your time so you can apply it to something else that makes a difference. And as an entrepreneur that's starting out, your time is the most important piece in this whole thing, more important than money.
Hey, Paco, I just want to chime in. That guy probably just wanted you to come in there and get your rate or what you would have done to fix what the other people were messing up.
Probably.
And take that and then go shop it against somebody else. Because that's another thing that we don't even talk about, is a lot of times as IT professionals, we're trying to help people thinking that we're going to come in and save the day, when really they take our quote and then price it against the other guy's quote. And then we never get any hear back or any calls, because it's just to them a commodity. It's a bunch of million IT guys and they just shop us against each other.
Yep. And especially like you said, as you continue to meet, when you do these conversations, it's going to end up being, they cannot make especially if you're talking about an IT consulting relationship, a managed service, they're not going to make the decision right then and there. There's time for them to, like you just said, shop around, talk to their higher ups, and, you know, depending on the size of the company, if you're talking about small businesses, and it's going to be a week, 2 weeks, possibly two, you have to follow up, which is why the phone call is so important. Because if you do that initial discovery call, all the cards on the table, this is how much we charge. I understand what you need. This is what we can do. I suggest that you could probably do package A or package B. I'm going to send you an email. Hey, when is a good time to follow back up with you? Is next Wednesday the same time good? Or can I follow up with you in 2 weeks? Oh, you know what? Things are going to get crazy next week. Why don't we go ahead and do a follow-up? Sounds good. I'm going to send you a calendar invite so that it's front of mind, so you know I'm going to call you during then. So now I know if you're avoiding me for a reason. So that's kind of how I've set myself up on that portion of it. And normally, sometimes they email me back earlier to say, you know what, let's get this done. Let's take care of it.
Yeah. I like using Matt Rainey's line. I remember on Podnutz one time hearing him say, someone asked if you're gonna bill me for that, or you're gonna bill me to come out, and he said, "Yes, we charge for service." You know, yep. I think that's fantastic. It was a perfect line. You know, and I've learned not to give free quotes anymore either. Like initially, I would come out, I would drive out to a location, give a free quote, but just like Paco was saying, they might want you to come out and do some work and maybe do a network scan or something like that. And they're just feeling you out, right? They might just feel you out and go with somebody else. And meanwhile, you've wasted an hour or two of your time, you know?
Yeah. A lot of people think that is the only way to get in these businesses. And again, I go back to, you got to find the people that are a right fit for you, business, residential, or anything in between. And guess what? There's people that are a good fit for you for every different type of person and business that's out there. You'll find those people. I guarantee you there's enough people in the world, even in your own local area, that you will absolutely find those people. Now, Don, when you started your business, because we didn't really talk about this, what type of business were you doing? Were you doing mostly on-site, kind of the mobile repair? Were you pulling stuff in-house? How were you actually working that out?
It was strictly residential in the beginning, and most of the time I would try to bring stuff back to my shop here, which is home-based. But a lot of jobs did end up where, you know, like say if someone needed a computer fixed right away, so maybe you'd spend an hour or two there and you'd clean the virus off the computer or whatever so they could use it right away. But really, really quickly, a lot of the business turned into business, just either because they knew people that own businesses, or they were related to people that own businesses, or they own their own business. And then I'd say within a couple of years, I was doing more business than I was doing residential. Part of me still likes the residential because it's a good supplement to the business. But I also find most homeowners, not all, but most homeowners, They're not maybe quite as needy as the business. Maybe their expectations aren't quite as high. Like if you have a business owner on a managed service plan, they basically expect you to, in my case, they basically expect me to pick up the phone when I call or when they call me, right? So some business owners, I'll set a ringtone for them to know that it's this business owner that's paying me a monthly amount just to call me type of thing, right? But yeah, I started out bringing business back to my shop, and it was purely residential.
Now, you didn't have anybody come into your home or anything like that. You went out, and if you picked up a computer, you brought it back or did it on site.
No, I did have people come to my home, but I luckily what I did was I took about half of I have a double car garage, and I took about half of the double car garage and made it into a nice office. So right when you walk in the door, I have a little sign on the door when it's business hours, and when people walk in, they can walk basically right into my office, right? And so it looks more professional. But I always let people know up front that I've built a business, in my own home just to keep the cost down, right? So, and most people seem to be okay with that.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Andre, from your standpoint, same question. What types of business were you doing when you were part-time, and what types of business are you doing now that you're full-time? You on-site, support, remote, etc.?
I started out just doing on-site, but I've had like different phases of business, right? Before I would go to people's homes and bring the computers back. I still do that. People, I prefer not to be at people's houses with them over my neck, trying to fix stuff. It bothers me. So it's like, hey, let me just take this home. I can have 2 or 3 computers going at once. I love that. Doing on site for residential, I probably am not. That's probably last on the totem pole. I will do on site. Most businesses will prefer you to be on site. So kind of like what Paco was saying, they prefer you to go be on site. You do your job there, you leave. That's it. I love remote. I swear that's like my bread and butter. But I'm not getting a lot of people that will pay me for it unless it's combined into some like service. So if they have like a monthly recurring plan, they have free remote service. But I haven't done a lot of just, hey, can you remote into my computer and I pay you type of jobs. But I have not done a lot of Google AdWords. So I'm going to try to get more money doing a remote support because I prefer that. I could do that from my phone, which I love to do anyway. But yeah, so I've kind of had different phases, but I would love to just do like remote support, honestly, if I could.
Well, one of the things that, and you have to, in today's day and age, unfortunately with the scammers, you have to be careful with actually advertising remote support. So I use it as an add-on in my business. But one of the things a lot of people don't think about, even from a residential standpoint, everybody knows I hate going on site. If I absolutely I don't want to go on site, so I absolutely try to avoid it as much as possible. But a lot of times when I do go on site and it's an hourly rate that I'm charging my customer. But when I get there, if I get there and go, oh yeah, we can have this fixed, but I'm not going to sit here for a couple hours regardless. It's just not happening. So we've got a couple of things we can do. It looks like I can either take this computer back, or better yet, it looks like I've got it to the point within 10 or 15 minutes where I can put my remote software on here and I'm going to go home. I'm going to finish it up. Now, again, see, a lot of people, it depends on what types of people you're dealing with, but a lot of people will go, wait a minute, you didn't collect payment? No, because either your gut tells you that this person is going to pay you as soon as you send them an invoice, no questions asked, or they're not. So figure that out in your gut, and then you either walk away or you stay on, and you figure it's worked for me. And again, I don't really go that far. So it's not like these people, they're not living across town or anything like that. They're living in my own city. And I've just never found that people they'll pay the bill even if they balk about it, they still pay it because it's the right thing to do. All right, Paco, what about you as far as because your business was a little bit different, but what types of business were you doing? Because obviously a lot of people know that you have an office down in the West Loop. You've had it in different areas. But how were you running your business to support your customers?
Sure. So back then I was doing mainly residential, and it was pick up, drop off at the office. At the time, it was a virtual office, so I was working from home. Essentially, that was my drop off point. They would come in, drop off their equipment, fill out the forms. I would go to the office, pick it up, work on it in my home office, bring it back, and then they can pick it up from the virtual office point. That was during my part-time days. When I went full-time, I then started to do more IT business, small business, and doing IT work for on site of their businesses, and then started going away from the residential. And then when I moved to my new office now, and I actually have it where I'm full-time there, I actually no longer advertise that I do residential computer repair. Now I still do it, but in the event that someone does call in and say, hey, I got this broken, whatever the case may be, I'll take care of it. But now it's mainly just small businesses doing some of those services, which sometimes translate to residential computer repair. And the reason why some of those still come in is because of my reviews. My reviews, because I've built those all over for the last several years, a lot of them state, Paco fixed this, ProdigyTeks fixed this, my screen was this. So they're looking at this, and then they look at my website and they're not too sure. So the ones that I know that really do want it fixed will call, leave a message, or speak to me to say, hey, do you do this? And I've limited my computer repair jobs to just being hard drive replacements and Windows crashes or Mac crashes for MacBooks. That's really the only computer repair jobs I'll take. Every so often I'll do a screen replacement, but I hate doing all that. So I end up sending it to my colleague Brando, who's been on Podnutz Daily before, or DC jack replacements, because those are the easiest, because sometimes they're just harnesses. Sometimes if it's the solder, I'll just send it over to him, give him a little bit of money for that, and just get it repaired. Other than that, I really don't do much else other than that, unless it's an upsell. So if it's like I hear that they spilled water on something, I know it's pretty much a goner. I'm going to see if I can recover the data. I'll do the data recovery / try and upsell them on a business class refurb with either Aero Direct or Amazon, depending on which I can get on their time frame, and then kind of go from there. So that's kind of where I've kind of looked at what I've been able to make money on and started concentrating on those jobs versus the ones that take me a lot of time that I hate, that I don't make as much margin on.
Okay. And I just want to bring this up. JD Venice in the chat room says, I was lucky. I retired from my job of 27.6 years and started my full-time business because I love doing this work. And my wife was making great money, and I had my retirement money to put towards the business to help it grow. All right. So, and then one of the other questions he had was, what does everyone charge an hour for home visits or office work? Does anybody want to say what they charge?
I can start. So it kind of goes into the 3 packages, and I've mentioned this before. If they want me hourly with no agreement, it's $175 an hour, along with adding some type of monitoring protection plan. I charge $9.99 per PC, and that's because I'm able to get a good price point with Synchro and Bitdefender. With the middle tier, which is what we call our retainer program, a business will have to pay $150 per hour and pre-purchase 10 hours up front, so $1,500, and then they can get the same protection plan that they can get on demand, but they actually get it at $5 a month per PC because of that good price point I have with Synchro. And then if they are a managed service provider, it's $79 per machine, and up to 10 machines. If it goes past 10 machines, then they get a slight discount going under. And then if it's past 21 machines, then they get at the lowest point of the pricing.
Okay. Don?
I charge $75 an hour in Canada here where I'm located, and that's pretty much the standard going rate here.
Yeah, that's like 150 here.
Yeah.
Andre?
I'm at 100 per hour, either
Okay.
residential or business.
Very good. And I am at 80 an hour. And most of the time now I still do flat rate repair. Now I know a lot of people balk at that, but when it comes to virus removals or reinstall, there's set prices for that. You know, a reinstall, hard drive replacement, you know, you're looking at $225, $250, depending on the hard drive and whatnot. So, and a lot of that's profit, you know, a little bit in the hardware and stuff like that. But most of the time, if I can, what I try to do, and going back to your point earlier, Andre, is that I will try to do a remote service, because there are times that people call up and they go, "Hey, can you take a look at this?" And what's going on? They tell me. I said, "Hey, are you still connected to the internet? Can you get online?" "Yes, I can." And then I'll go in. I said, "I'll tell you what, we can remote in, take a look at it." Now, if it's here's the difference in pricing. If it's a problem that I have to figure out, that is an hourly rate, because I'm not, I'm not doing it. But if I know, I go in, I look at it, and I go, "Oh yeah, you're infected," then that is going to be a flat rate, of which I charge $89 to do a virus removal, because I basically click a couple buttons, go walk away, eat dinner, and I can have several of those going at one time, and then go on from there. So your areas are gonna vary differently too from where you're based at. Like I said, you look at Don. He said $75 an hour. Like I said, it's a lot more in Canada, comparative to our dollars. So, and I would say I'm just a little bit below the brick and mortar stores in my area. So a lot of them will charge right around 90 for residential, and maybe 99 to 100. But I try to keep everything simple. And here's the bottom line. The reason I kept it at $80, people are going to laugh. Math is easy. It's $20 every quarter, and it's easy to round up or round down or whatever I need to do to make that. I don't have to figure anything out. And here's the other thing too. A lot of people will, if I have to go on site, it basically, my clock starts when I start my car, and my clock does not end until I'm back in my driveway and I shut the car off. So it's not just time on site. It's whatever it takes to get there. Now, again, most places are only 5, 10, 15-minute drive for me, because I won't go outside that area. So they know, hey, here's what you're getting charged for. But a lot of times those will end up turning into, like I said, remote service if I can. That's my number one go-to. And just because of time, and I think Don alluded to it earlier, a lot of times if you do have to work after hours, that is one of the things I like to do after hours, that I can pull up on my secondary screen while I'm getting some other work done, and remote in and take care of issues that I need to. But, I'm leaving margin in another part of my day. So again, it's not that I'm working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week with my job, business, and other things. So, all right, gentlemen, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go through the gambit. Andre, I appreciate you bringing this topic. Do you have any lasting thoughts while we round this out here?
Man, this was a good show. I appreciate being brought on, Jeff. I would just say, after hearing everybody, I've written down many notes, so it's a lot that I need to go back and tweak in my business. And I think that's the number one thing. Is this, we're always going to be continually growing and continually changing. So, as we all are at different spaces in our business, there's always room to grow, and just be open to growth and continue to grow and change. Because nothing is, you either change or die, basically, right? And so I just got a lot of knowledge from this podcast, and I'm gonna implement. That's the other thing, implement, right? You got to hear it, but then you got to implement and do it in your business. So I'm just thankful to be on here, and thanks.
Well, I thank you for bringing the subject, because this is a subject that is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. And a lot of people are trying to figure out, how do I make that transition? And I think we were talking earlier in the show that a lot of times this transition comes because of a loss of a job. And right. I've heard that more times than I've heard somebody goes, yeah, I'm just going to jump off into this thing, man. I got a solid job, but you know what? I'd rather work for myself. It normally, even for the ones that have been in the business for a long time, it normally doesn't. There was a push and a shove, and they tripped over themselves and got up and said, hey, I'm going to start my own business. That's right. How it works. All right, Don, any lasting thoughts?
Yeah, don't take every single job. Like if someone is price conscious right off the bat and trying to get a better deal out of you, or they maybe sound like they're either crazy, or they're calling up and complaining about all these other people that have done work on their computer or whatever, then walk away from those jobs. Just say, hey, I don't think it's a good fit. And I just want to say happy Thanksgiving weekend to all the Canadian viewers out there.
All two of them.
Yeah.
Actually, there's probably a lot more than that. Actually.
Yeah.
No, appreciate it, Don. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. All right, Paco, you are up. Any lasting thoughts?
Yeah. So the only thing I can say, as whether you're part-time, you're in transition, or have a year or two in there, it's never wrong to always be on. Now, there's a difference between always being on and then always being working in your business. So if you're going to work with your business, make sure that you have hours that you set to answer your clients, do everything that you have to do with your business in general. But it's never a bad thing to always be on, and you're continuing to think, what's the next piece of my business? What's next to evolve myself? What's the next thing? Because that's the issue with myself, is I've now been able to now designate hours for my business. My business is open from 8:30 to 5. So I will not work on anything tangible during my business after those hours. I make time for, family, other avenues and other things that I'm involved with. But it's not a bad thing to always be on, listening to different videos, listening to podcasts, being able to just say, hey, you know what? That's one thing that's really cool to think. I'm going to note it down. Always having that opportunity and keeping that mind open on, hey, that's kind of something cool to do and apply, is not a bad thing.
Very good. All right, and let's take a quick second here. If you'd like to support what we're doing here, I encourage you to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And I want to thank our newest Patreon supporter, Raphael Pagan. And I want to thank all of our current Patreon supporters for your continued support. I really, really appreciate what everybody's doing out there. Now, what that does is that gets you into the secret Facebook group where there are other like-minded technicians and business owners that do this on a regular basis, and they're willing to help and ask questions, and it gets everybody's minds kind of thinking along those lines. And again, it's $1 a show. We do no more than 4 shows a month. I think typically that's how it works out. About 4 shows a month. And it's about a cup of coffee, the price of a cup of coffee, and well worth it. And it's a safe environment that you can be involved in inside of Facebook, so that you can be helped by other people and not feel like when you ask a basic question that somebody's going to lambaste you, because we don't put up with that. Paco happens to be one of my enforcers, and he will boot you in a heartbeat.
Yep.
And
100%.
Paco, have we had any problems thus far? And I think we've been doing it for like a year.
No, we actually haven't. And the main reason is, people are coming in knowing that it's a safe place. And the reason why it's such a great group compared to others is because there is no snarkism. And there are people that are now putting things or topics in our group that they're afraid to put in other groups. And the great part about that is it's questions that all of us would have. And there have been many times where someone says, hey, look, I'm putting it on here. I'm a little uncomfortable putting it on here because I fear backlash. But what do you guys think? And everyone has always been encouraging. Everyone has really been great to each other. And no, again, we haven't had any problems where we've had to ban anybody. We haven't had any issues where things kind of went off the rails, because everyone respects each other. Everyone knows that we're all friends and colleagues, and we're all trying to achieve the same thing. And that's probably why that group is probably one of my favorites, because we have that safe environment that no one is going to judge you to think that it's a stupid question, because guess probably 5 others in that group are going to have it and are glad you had the courage to ask it.
And I'll be honest with you, I never thought we have 93 people in that group within a year's time. I never thought it would be actually that high. And I just be honest, I just never did. But there are enough people out there that do appreciate what we do and the time we take as a group to come together and put this together. And it does take time. It takes time and effort. This is my 3rd job for all intents and purposes, because it does take away from other things. And I enjoy doing it because I think it's needed in the marketplace. I think it's something that's worthwhile to talk about, some of these sensible things that people need to do in their businesses. And hopefully that has been a help to those out there listening to my voice right now. And we do appreciate everyone Same thing with the emails and stuff like that. We appreciate people sending emails in, asking questions, giving answers to things we've talked about on the show, giving their perspective. Man, we listen to all that stuff. We really do. Because we by ourselves are not the smartest people, but as a collective group pulling together this community, we are a very, very strong force. And we've even had, believe it or not, influence on certain vendors out there in the industry. A lot of people, you don't have that unless you've got people that are trying to sit there and fight that fight for you and go, hey, this would make a lot more sense if we could have something like this to make my job easier. Now, it doesn't always go the way we want, but hey, we still have the availability to do that, so it's good. All right. Let's see. I think that's it. I think we're gonna get out of here. This was another long show, but well worth it. Well worth the time and effort that everybody's put into you guys, Andre, Don, and Paco, for bringing your information on going from a part-time business to a full-time business and talking about the things that you did along the way. If you want, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/CRP live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. We sometimes, if I can pay attention to two things at once, we will read that. I do go through and read it regardless, even if it's after the show. You can send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com, like we said earlier, or if you want to have your lovely voice next to ours, you can leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000. I'll thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.